Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue with our system. So what remains in our system is to give a notification here for tests so that the student can know how many tests have not been given attention. They haven't given attention to, or they haven't submitted yet. So that can indicate here. And then we can add school year and school semesters. And then we can call it a day on this project. So to begin with this, we have a list of tests here where the student is eligible to take, so they can click take this test and so on. But maybe we can highlight the ones that have not been taken yet, or that need attention, so that the student can click take this test to finish up and then submit. Okay, so how exactly do we do that? So we need to create a query that fits that profile. So if we go to our table, the database, if we go to answered tests, this is the part where all the tests that have been answered are situated. And not only that, it shows us which ones have been submitted. So all we have to do is check for those that have not been submitted yet. But in order to clean this up, let me first of all, let me copy the date from here and put it on this one. That way at least it has a valid date, but I think I made it invalid somehow. I have no idea why it keeps doing that. So maybe let me select a particular date. Let's try like that. Oops. It still adds those zeros, which I have no idea why. 25th. This was on the October 25th. Okay, so looks like if I do that, it should work. I have no idea why it adds those zeros. Anyway, let me not dwell on that. And what I want to do is remove the submitted here and put a 0. That way at least we have 2 unsubmitted. We're going to reverse this later, of course. We just want to see some notification there. And then if I go to my nav bar here, so this is the inside views includes nav. There's this to mark that has a notification system here. So we will copy this and just create a separate function here that will bring out the number that we want, and then we can put it there. All right. So we need to create a function just like we have this one, get to mark count. We should say get tests notification or something. That's entirely up to you what you want to name that. Now this function was created inside the test model, so this is one way to do it, or you can just directly create it in the core functions here. But before we do that, let's see how to construct a query that does what we want, right? So in answered tests, like I said, there are 2 of these that have not been submitted. So and at the same time there are tests here. Okay, so all we have to do is read from tests, but we need to know to get only the tests that belong to the classes that we know. Okay, so that we belong to, that is. So here, to know what class somebody belongs to, a student especially, we go to class students. So from class students, this is where we begin. So let's get the classes that our student belongs to, which is guy dude. So far this guy belongs to 2 of these. So let's try and get that. So we look at the user ID, which is guy.dude. So I'm just going to copy that user ID for reference while we create the query. So we go to a SQL tab, and let's see here. Let me start the query from scratch. So I'm just going to say select all from class students actually, where the user ID is equal to guy dude, just like that. Okay, so this is simple and straightforward. We're going to get a few results, 2 results to be specific. So there we go. So these are the classes that this guy belongs to. Now we just want 1 column, so I'm going to edit this query, select class ID because that's all I'm interested in. So that way we get 1 column as a result. So here it is, class IDs. Now, like we've seen previously, if we can return 1 column, we can use the result of this query in another query. So let's edit inline again. Now this time I want to get tests that belong to this list. So I'm just going to say select all, which is star, from tests where class ID in, and then we cover the entire first query inside brackets, just like that. So let's do a go here, and we get all the tests that belong to the classes that the current user belongs to. So what we want are the test IDs from this. So let's edit inline again. Let's only select the test ID. So select test ID from tests where class ID in, and then the other query. So let's go and see a result. We just get the test IDs. So all these are the tests that belong to the classes that the student belongs to. So now that we have all the tests, this is good. Now we just need to subtract the ones that the user has already taken, or the ones that he has submitted. So once we do that, then the remaining tests are the ones that need taking care of. So how exactly can we do that? So let's click edit inline. So in answered tests here, we have submitted, right? Where submitted is equal to 0. So I'm going to open a separate link here to answered tests. That way we can see what params we can be looking for. So first of all, we look for our guy, of course, guy dude. So user ID should be right in there. So user ID is equal to guy dude. And then we look for submitted is equal to 1. So wherever this guy dude and submitted is equal to 1 means ignore that one. But where there's guy dude and there's submitted is equal to 0, then that's a we're interested in that one. The user needs to edit it. So we ignore those. So we just want to get those that were submitted already, and then subtract them from this list. So in order to get the ones that were submitted, it's a simple query here. We just say edit inline here. I can say select all from answered tests where submitted, not submitted is equal to 0, because we'll get tests from other users. So we need to keep in mind the user ID should be equal to, and then let's put guy dude. And at the same time, submitted should be equal to 1. So we want those that were submitted already. So once I do this, if I hit go, it does bring out one item here, which starts with F4CY for me, which is right here, F4CY. So we need to remove this, and the rest should be eligible to be looked at because they are not submitted. So once I get this, I can copy that. Let me retype this a little bit. I don't like these backticks, so I'll say select all from, but remember we want just the test ID here, so test ID like that, and then go. So we get the same result, but just the test ID. This way we can use this in another query. So I'm going to copy this, come back to our longer query, editing line. So here we are selecting all of these that are tests where the class ID is equal to whatever the results here, but we should put an AND here, okay, and the test ID should be the way we use in, but we can also say not in. So we can put not at the beginning and then put our other query in brackets like so. So let's test the theory here. Go. Alrighty then, so we get 3 results, which is good, but this is not just what we want the entire test row. So let's edit inline, and the very first query on the outside we'll put a star so it can retrieve entire rows of tests. So there we go, the whole test thingy here is there. Very nice, very nice. What else? Yes, that should do. So 1 to 3 items that have not been taken care of, so that's good to know. They need submitting. So now I can edit this and copy the entire thing and just put some valid variables there. So what we can do if we want to use a normal function, let's go down to the bottom line here and just say function. So we're getting what do we call this one? Maybe unsubmitted tests, maybe something like that. But it's entirely up to you how you want to name this. And then here I will put, I had pasted the query, but let me put it inside a variable, say query is equal to, and let me put the semicolon in advance and paste in between here. Very good. Now every reference to guide dude here must be changed to user ID, so including the quotes here. So this one should be full stop or full colon user ID. That way we can use a an array instead. Now the user ID we are interested in is the current logged in user, so we will get that from the auth function. Yes. So what I want to do here is get a proper in the models, get the right model. So the one that deals with tests is the correct one. So tests model here, and I can use that one. So I will say something like tests class is equal to new test model. So the reason we're using this model is because it will retrieve all the user rows as well, because that's part of how the model is designed. That way we may need that information. And then here I'll just say data is equal to tests class, and then let's do a query. And then in that query, we'll put our trusty query. And then let's add an array here for user ID. So user ID, and then we point, and let's use auth, double colon, get user ID, brackets, like so. Alrighty then. So we've supplied our current user's ID, we've run our query, and we should expect some data here, which is 3 rows. And so if we return a count of that, then we are in business. So return count data. That way we return the number of items that were retrieved. So then here we don't even need the star to retrieve all rows. Maybe we can even do ID. That way we reduce the amount of information returned, but we still get our count anyway. So get unsubmitted tests. I will copy this. And then what I will do is go to the nav view and see, I want to copy this whole thing here onto tests. So I will paste the function name here, but then I want to copy what's happening down here from this to end F. So copy, and this is here. I will move the closing A tag down and paste these babies. So instead of all this, first of all, it's not to mark, it's what can we call this one? Let's see here. So I'm pressing Control D after selecting the first one to select all other instances of this. So instead of to mark, this is going to be unsubmitted. Maybe we can say unsubmitted count, just like that. This should work. And then let's use our function here. I'll cut that and replace this whole new paste like this. So that is the result, which is right there and right there and right there. Okay, so all this seems to be okay for now, and let's test it out. So I'll go here and refresh the page. There's a number 3 at the end there, which is way too far. Now what causes that is positioning issues. So just the way we did style position relative, we are supposed to do that as well on this other list item. So I will copy and paste there. That should solve the problem, and let's refresh. Okay, so tests 3. If I go to classes, there we go, tests 3. So there are 3 tests that have not been submitted, which looks like it's all the tests anyway. But if I go back to, before I change that, I want us to know which of these tests it is, so that we can highlight the tests because of that notification. So a way we can do that is to make sure that the return of unsubmitted tests is actual rows which have a test ID. That way we can, as we are loading those tests, if we find that one of those tests is in there, then we can display it differently. So what I'll do is this. I will change this, because now once I change it, get unsubmitted tests, unsubmitted count. So count is a little bit weird here, but anyway, what we can do is maybe create a different function altogether, but it will be exactly the same like this, only that this will not return a count but return the test IDs. So I guess we can do that. So I'm just going to do this, get unsubmitted tests, let's do underscore rows, because this returns the rows. Everything else is the same, it's just right on the return. Now, before we even continue, it's also possible that this can return a false. So we must check to see if data, that's when we return that count there. Okay, so if we go to the nav here, if to mark, okay, so else we return 0 like that. Okay, that way we never have a problem with when this is false, because if we try to count what is false, then we'll get an error. So it's better to avoid such errors. And there we go. So here, instead of the count, we're just going to remove this. Now also, I don't want to return an array of objects. What I want is here, I want to get the test IDs. So I'll say test underscore ID. And then I want to get them into one array. So instead of returning just an array of objects, I want to return just a simple array with test IDs in them, in that array. So here I'll say return array column wait a second, array column, I want to know, I'll select this one. Okay, so the input and the column key, this is what I wanted to know, the syntax. So the input is data and the column key is test ID. Like that. Okay, so if this is not working, instead of returning 0, we return an empty array, which we can just abbreviate as 2 square brackets like that. Okay, so good. This one will get us the actual rows, so I'm just going to copy that. Now, because this information is required on the test controller, this is what we are going to put it on. So this is the test controller public folder, public thingy here. And so I want to add one more item here. So I'll do this and say unsubmitted is equal to that function, like so. Let me not forget the comma here. Okay, very well. So then we have this function. Then we can use the unsubmitted to display an error around, or something, a different color just around the ones that are being talked about here.